Hi everybody, I'm Aura, and I am not cool, and I love that. More research has been done on the millennial culture than any other culture, any other generation. And what this research tells us is that millennials define cool as laid back, living in the moment. Cool kids don't plan, they just go with the flow. But what this means is that millennials are making conscious choices about their futures. Not only is that dangerous, but also it's indicative of a social problem. We're afraid of choice. When I was 16 years old, I told my mom that I was going to adopt a hamster. And then I came home with a pit bull. I was so afraid. But while walking into my house was terrifying, that fear was fleeting. It was meaningless. Easy. When I was 17, I went on a frat day trip with this guy who was just my opposite. I mean, I love certain people and things intensely. He had this casual, natural way of loving everything. At that time, I was super insecure. He had this burning passion for the environment that I looked up to. Our differences meant that being around him scared me. I mean, what if I was wrong? Just not pretty enough, not smart enough, not cool enough. Spending time with somebody that's different from you or doing something without parental permission, that inspires manageable fear. Fear that's over almost as soon as it begins. Your mom loves the dog, or you get to know the guy, and you're left laughing, leaning into his shoulder, brainstorming names, wondering why you were nervous at all. These fears are trivial and transient. They end with the situation. The type of fear that making a choice inspires is different. The choice fear brings comes from the fact that it's a permanent statement, an assertion about who you are that you can never fully reverse. Choice inherently changes the course of your life. It defines you as a person. And that's scary. Because what if you choose wrong? What if people judge your choices? What if you choose and then you fail and embarrass yourself? Choice inspires fear because it is permanent, representative, a challenge. Yet it is these intimidating qualities that make choice so powerful. And we need to take control of that power. Because everybody has dreams. And everybody has the potential to accomplish them. Dreams to change the world. Everybody can do it. The power of choice is in making that potential a reality. When I was 19, I started law school at University of Southern California after earning my BA in 2 years at University of California, Santa Barbara. What did I learn? Inertia is not enough. Movement is a start. But meaningful progression requires direction, and direction is produced by awareness and conscious choice. I started law school as a teenager because I had a dream, a clear idea of what I wanted to do. I want to work in big law and do pro bono work with animals. Animals live in a world that's defined and destroyed by humans, but they have no voice. So as a first step in advancing animal rights legislation and protecting the dignity of animal life, I hope to make euthanizing animals illegal except for medical purposes. That is my dream. When you find your dream, why wait? Make the choices that is going to put you in a position to start accomplishing your dreams as soon as possible. I can start accomplishing my dreams now because I make those conscious choices. The summer before I started undergrad, I sat down and mapped out 5 different ways that I could finish my major requirements in 2 years. And then I didn't. At which point a more concrete understanding of the power of choice kind of started to dawn on me. But at that time, I was not worried about the power of choice. I was worried that I was missing out on the most fun and explorative years of my life. And in some ways, I did. But choosing to graduate early and move forward, whether right or wrong, has empowered me to move forcefully towards my goals. And that is the power of choice. When you choose, your choice ceases to be this nebulous goal for some point in a distant future. It becomes part of you. Now, I'm not advocating choosing every second of every minute of every day. That's probably not healthy or even possible. But rather, I'm encouraging you to balance conscious decision-making with elements of spontaneity. Spontaneity is good in moderation. The problem is that our generation has overly romanticized this idea of going with the flow. And we need to start making conscious choices immediately. We need to stop waiting for certainty, or for a sign, or to be ready, because we may never be ready. And in fact, readiness is not as critical as it may seem. Because when you're put in a situation that you're not ready for, you adapt. The average age of a starting law student is 25. I was 19. I was not ready. I was younger and more mature than every single person in that class. But I'm catching up. I recently spent some time with this friend that I hadn't seen in a while, and he told me that I am socially and emotionally a stronger and more enjoyable person than I've ever been. I'm growing into readiness. But that doesn't just happen, and it doesn't happen overnight. It is a product of putting yourself in a challenging environment that allows and empowers you to grow as a person. Now, I'm not here to empower you. Only you can do that. I'm here because our generation needs to redefine indecisiveness, this chronic fear of choosing. Indecisiveness is an epidemic. It's a word that we just throw around casually, not realizing what we're losing. But being indecisive means that the moments we get to define ourselves are passing us by. Who we are, what we influence. That all starts with choosing. But choosing is challenging. So many of us call ourselves indecisive, and really we're just decisive people afraid of making the wrong choice. We let other people or other circumstances decide for us because it's easier. Why? Because choosing means standing for something, and standing for something means creating the potential for yourself to fall. Under a quite different definition of fall, we're going to catch up a little bit on the slides. Under a quite different definition of fall, I fell for this one guy in my last year at UCSB, and we became inseparable. So when I was deciding where to go to law school, he weighed heavily on my mind. Now, I would be misrepresenting my story, and really my message, if I use this as an opportunity to tell you how important it is that you decide for yourselves, and only yourselves, because I didn't. I chose for him. When I got to law school, we crashed and burned. This relationship was this draining experience that I romanticized as some kind of surrealistic love, postmodern anti-love. And the insecurity and misery that he brought out in me somehow made it more meaningful. But this was a horrible decision. I put myself in a situation that made me fundamentally unhappy. This situation, however, also serves perfectly to illustrate the difference between making a choice and making the right choice. Choosing means not just letting things happen to you, but rather actively managing your experiences. It does not mean always being right. It is okay to make choices for the wrong reasons. It is okay to be wrong. The power of choice is in what you learn. So when we broke up, I thought that I made this horrible mistake in coming to USC. And in some ways, it did limit me. I am not telling you to make choices for other people. It is good to make choices for yourselves. But choice is not static. What you do with the choices that you make matters. You can make the wrong choice for a slew of good reasons, or you can make the right choice for wrong reasons. So me coming to USC for all of the wrong reasons does not mean coming to USC was a mistake. In fact, I have learned more here about who I want to be, what I have to say, and how to make my voice heard than anywhere else. On the topic of USC, coming to college means being thrust into this environment where you can define yourself, where you have the opportunity to carefully, through conscious choice, sculpt the person who you are and what influence you will have on the world. You have the opportunity to explore, to experience the world through different clubs, classes, sports, societies. You have the opportunity to choose what you are going to do with your life. Now that is largely a product of being surrounded by incredible people, so thank you all. And I also want to thank my parents. Oops, this slide first. My parents. My parents are phenomenal. When I was 8 years old, I told them that I wanted to open my own law firm in a custom-built skyscraper in Manhattan. They very seriously looked at me and asked me what shape it was going to be. My parents raised me in Orange County, which is an environment that fosters drifting. because everything's predetermined. It starts early. In elementary school, there's the right schools, there's the right extracurriculars, there's the right hobbies. In high school, there's the right clothes, and then the right amount to eat so that you fit into those clothes. And then one day you wake up, you walk in your high school graduation, and you waltz into a world where mom, dad, and an assortment of authority figures are not there to tell you what to do. But you continue to just go with the flow. You continue to drift. Now nobody is there to direct you. I want to thank my parents because they asked me from a very young age to choose who I wanted to be, why I wanted to be that person, and how I would become that person. The difference between the experience that they provided me and my surroundings allowed me a little bit of insight into the costs and the benefits of choosing. The cost of choosing is real, and it can be significant. Choosing means you lose some opportunities. You can always go back and try something new, but choosing means giving yourself and your time over to something. So yes, if you make a mistake, you lost that time. You lost those opportunities. And choosing means being exposed for who you are and what you believe. The cost of that exposure is that you may lose friends. You may be judged. Choosing means you might fail and you might embarrass yourself. But these are only risks. They're not certain. The cost of not choosing is certain and substantial. Not choosing means you lose every opportunity. You never define yourself. The benefit of choosing is that you progress with a sense of clarity. You internalize your dreams and you start to accomplish those as goals. The benefit of not choosing is that you avoid some fear. You don't keep your options open. You don't. Time is passing, opportunity is passing, but you avoid some fears. I used to be afraid of choosing though. I distinctly remember there was this dark brown carpet that had visible smears of kind of unidentifiable origin. And he was skipping from song to song while the speakers lagged a second behind. He never let any of the songs finish until he turned his attention to me. And I said, wait. I said, I don't know. I never said yes or no. And I thought about leaving and didn't. He finished and walked away. I left. Now, I'm not a victim. In that moment, I failed to choose. And I failed to choose because I was afraid of being lonely. The way I saw it, I had two options. First, I could choose no and then walk home cold and alone. A physical representation of choosing my own path. Or I could choose to go with the flow and just let whatever was happening happen, and at least I wouldn't be lonely. What I learned is that loneliness accompanies choice in any form. Whether you make a conscious choice or you choose to just go with the flow, there are going to be moments that you are lonely. The difference is that when you fail to choose, your happiness ends up contingent on what somebody else chose. Like me, you may end up laying on a dirty couch, still lonely. So embrace the occasional loneliness and see it as a sign of independence, of individualism. Being an individual is scary. It means not hiding behind the established, the majority, the popular. It means being lonely sometimes. But if you want to make a mark on the world, being an individual is essential. And becoming an effective individual is necessarily a product of conscious choice. People say that we're a product of our environment or our experiences. But in reality, we are largely a product of how we choose to respond to our environment and our experiences. So I challenge you today. Choose your response. Make a change or make a conscious acceptance of the status quo. Do not necessarily methodically plan out every aspect of life, but stand for something. Because whether in academics, romance, or family life, it's time to start making choices. A fundamental rule in economics is that everything costs something, and the cost of indecision is huge. You lose the opportunity to make your mark. After all, making your mark starts with making a choice. Thank you. I just wanted to take a second to thank Vanessa Yu, who was mentoring and guiding me through this
entire process. I could not have done it without you. Thank you so much.